Right guys, hope you're all well and had a sober New Year's. Let me know in the comments what your New Year's resolution is. Mine's actually to focus on my health a lot more. You know, I used to be this chiseled Zac Efron looking stud and now I'm more like somewhat Mr. Kipling would wrap in bed sheets and serve to 18 people. That's how bad it's got. I've lost control and you should never lose control. Yours sincerely, Papa Slayers. Now, a week ago I did a video talking about how gear score is going to really matter in year 2 after Frederick Thailander confirmed 500 gear score items will have maximum rolls. So god rolls essentially are going to be coming back. Now if you haven't seen that, I'd highly recommend you do. Now on the same trend of year 2 news, today I wanted to go over more recent things to be confirmed by Frederick Thailander on Twitter, who appears to be the only developer really answering the community without giving away too much. If you have a question, please go to Frederick's Twitter page and ask him, or leave it below and I'll try and get answers. With that said, let's begin with more news. So first off, talents. Now talents are going to be changing in year 2 with the RPG overhaul. Someone posted on Twitter saying, what do you think about a PvP modifier to clutch? Now Frederick responded saying, I don't think clutch is a well-functioning talent to begin with. A gambling man would bet on some substantial changes. Now Frederick further goes on to say, we're rebooting the way gear is done from scratch. We're not nerfing clutch specifically, big picture man. So this is interesting. Now I've covered what we know about the RPG overhaul so far, but I really think the 2 screenshots we saw are like the smallest fish in the biggest sea. When the developers said overhaul, I really think they meant everything, pretty much. And I think I'm less concerned about clutch than I am about the shotgun meta, but build diversity in general in the game right now isn't really all that good anyway. I think we can all agree that in the live game the build diversity, it pretty much sucks. At this point, it's far too easy to create a build that's good at everything and have no compromise. In fact, Frederick confirmed the same, stating, there's a couple of things I feel missing the core is the non-compromise build meta, where people can gain a lot of damage while maintaining a lot of survivability. Secondly, there's too little team synergy in talents, build and skill use, and I think that the DZ is too PvE orientated. So I wonder how it's going to change. Well, more news has come forward from Frederick recently. He stated that core attributes work a little similar to firearms, stamina and electronics, except they are actually real numbers that don't need to be converted, and there's no talent requirement. So this response is certainly some changes we didn't know about, and comes as a response to a thread where someone observed that passive talents might be disappearing based on the 2 screenshots the devs used in State of the Game. Now this is confirmation from Frederick that there is not going to be active or passive talents with this RPG overhaul. I believe this also confirms that talents will be, there'll be no offensive, defensive or utility requirements either, but I could be wrong there. Frederick didn't specifically say what it was, what requirements were being removed. They just said there'll no longer be talent requirements. So if you consider that as an overall statement, then I'm going to presume that offensive, defensive and utility requirements will also be removed as well. And this should give you some idea at the scale of this overhaul. It's essentially going to be completely changing the RPG of the game, and it's going to be a completely new RPG experience after this. And I also think what they're doing with this is that these changes they're going to simplify the loot game a bit, which I actually think is a good thing, because it should mean that balancing this stuff is far easier. If you consider where the Division 1 was compared to the Division 2, I would say the Division 1 was far easier to balance than this game, just because this game has so much variation, which the Division 1 didn't have, although Division 1 was still pretty varied anyway. It does appear that all gear is going to be kind of standardized, meaning that they're going to have the same number of talents, attributes and mod slots, which again for me, I think it's a good idea. Again, very similar to the Division 1, and I think it's part of that balancing issue that the game has had from day one, where we've had so many variations of the same gear. Where, you know, you've got Fenris, which might have 3 or 4 different variations, all with their own mod slots, all with their unique talents, whatever it might be, and it just becomes this cycle where the RNG is just crazy. And we know about that. I've done plenty of videos about how bad the RNG has been in this game, and even with the loot targeting system, it's better. But you've still got those variations within each piece of loot that you're targeting. If you're targeting Fenris, but you want a specific variation of that, then, you know, there's that whole process as well. So I really think this is going to help with the balancing of the game, and it should also help with the RNG. Now, we don't know what's happening with the recalibration. That will probably help with the RNG as well, and anything that can just reduce the RNG a bit is really going to be good. What we don't want, however, is we don't want it to go too far, and I know Massive are pretty good at this. They normally go from one extreme to the other. We don't want it to go too far that there is no grind left. You know, the RNG is, you know, give me an hour or two and I'll get all the best gear in the game. We don't want that. We also don't want it to be like the lottery or, you know, that sort of situation where it's been before, where it's pretty much impossible to get the gear that you want. I'd hope that with all of these changes, they're going to find a happy medium. Now, I've tried to take some time and try to figure out if there's anything else that I can take from the 2 screenshots, or how the system might actually be working when Year 2 comes around. But I'm not a developer, you know, I'm just a YouTuber who's not intelligent enough to figure it out. So I'm excited here about more that's hopefully going to be coming up in the first state of the game on New Year's on 8th of January. I do know that I do not believe Frederick's going to be part of that. I'm not totally sure, but I don't think he's going to be part of that one. So they're still going to give us some stuff, but Frederick's the main man. He's going to give us the bulk of it, so we might have to wait possibly a week later. The only thing we know so far is that the budget system is being removed, talents will no longer have requirements, and that the RPG overhaul is much bigger than I think we were all anticipating. Now, before I move on to PvP in the Darkzone, I just want to include another post from Frederick, who stated, "We wouldn't do this unless we have plenty of new stuff to make it fun." I know a few people think the Division 2 is being run by kind of a skeleton staff because Massive are too busy focusing on other projects like Avatar, but you don't make huge changes like these ones being proposed here with a skeleton staff. It's just not possible. These sort of changes require a lot of manpower and a lot of hours. I don't know how long the developers have been working on this change, but I imagine it's some time ago. And I bash this game for the lack of content, and deservedly so. It doesn't have very good content at the moment, but I think it's naive to believe that that won't change in Year 2 or even Episode 3, which is probably going to be coming out in the middle of this month, potentially, maybe the start of next month. The developers, you know, they did mess up, I believe, with the loot system here. They tried some up, it didn't work, but they are making sweeping changes to the core RPG experience to rectify those mistakes, and it will be pointless if there's no content. And I don't for a second believe that Massive don't understand this. It's actually good to hear from Frederick about this, you know, to come from the mouth of Frederick, that the developers are completely aware that they need to make good content or fun content. Otherwise, these changes are pretty much pointless. The next thing I just want to touch upon is PvP and the Darkzone. Now, firstly, Frederick has confirmed that specialization ammo is being removed from the Darkzone, which is really good news. Secondly, as the message from Frederick said before, he believes the Darkzone is too PvE orientated. Now, I'm not going to say I know what's best for this mode because I barely played it at all in the Division 2, but I played it a lot in the Division. Now, for anyone who's well versed in the Darkzone of the Division 2, what do you think needs to happen to improve the PvP experience? I thought the 3 Darkzones was going to be a good idea when it was first announced, but I think most people would now say the one large Darkzone is better, but the developers have already confirmed this won't be changing. For me, the Darkzone, it is too PvE orientated. The NPCs are far too strong and play too much part in who wins PvP fights half the time. The Darkzone should be the endgame PvP game mode. Everything in the game is orientated towards PvE. The last update to the Darkzone added instances where NPCs can ambush you whilst you're extracting gear. I don't know why this was added. If you're a PvE player, you can do challenging or heroic missions, the raid, expeditions, and more to get the best gear. The Darkzone should be PvP only, in my opinion. It's going to be interesting to see how all of these changes not only impact how PvP works, because when you're changing all this gear, and they've confirmed as well that not only is the gear changing, but how, you know, the rate in which it drops, they're probably going to have to change time to kill. When you can change in all of this stuff, we're pretty much going to be getting a fresh start. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of these changes impact how PvP works. But then on top of that, what they're going to do to actually make PvP a much better experience, not only for stuff like conflict, but also for the Darkzone, which in my opinion is the endgame PvP experience. They really need to do a lot with the Darkzone. It's one of those modes that you can stream on Twitch, you can stream it all day, and it's one of those modes that keeps the game separate from many other games out there. Hardly any other games, I don't know, Darkzone was kind of the first time it happened in a game, essentially, and it kind of is that that selling point for it was for the Division 1, it's less so for the Division 2, but I think it should be more for the Division 2, and I really feel as though with PvP, as I said before, they really put 95% of their work into PvE, and it's kind of backfired because the PvP audience are the ones that are sticking around, especially when you don't have PvE stuff. So really excited to see what they're going to do with the Darkzone. Alright guys, thanks very much for watching today's video. Hopefully you guys did have a fantastic New Year's, and hopefully all your resolutions stick it out until 2021. I know that most resolutions basically fall off, like mine, which is going to the gym and eating healthy, but I am going to do it because I used to work at a gym and I used to look pretty good. I mean, if that's arrogant, then I don't care. But I used to be healthy and all that, and unfortunately that's just gone down the Swanee, especially since this game out, and especially since I started doing okay on YouTube. But do you know what? I'm going to focus more on that next year. You're going to definitely get a lot more content from me, guys. I'm really looking forward to what next year has in store. Hopefully everything for you guys, all your wishes and dreams, they all come true next year. Hopefully they'll come true tomorrow. The sooner the better for everyone. And with that said, epic out.